are actually from Dubai, in case any of you out there are interested. Shocking, adultering life. Explain my feelings on this book. Don't let the cuteness fool you. Hello, Booksies. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a hot minute. I have to clarify several things before we get into today's video. First of all, if my voice sounds a little off, it's because it is. I have been recovering from this virus that's been going around. It's been 2 weeks. Another thing, today is very, very gloomy. Let me show you guys. Hold on. As you can see, it's a very dark, rainy day, so I have to use my ring light. I hope it will do, because it doesn't look like we are going to get any sunshine anytime soon. Not that I'm complaining. Every reader and book lover knows that rainy time is the perfect ambiance for reading a good book. Also, I was supposed to film this video about 10 days ago. But as I said, I got sick, so it got postponed. But I'm happy that I'm still able to film it now, because I want to show you guys my little Christmas decorations that I put up on my bookshelves. I usually have a Christmas tree as well, but not this year, unfortunately. I finally gave away my old tree. It had seen better days, and I was too lazy to get myself a new one. Just to clarify something, you might be confused. I actually grew up celebrating Christmas, ironically, with my atheist grandparents. My mom's side of the family, who are atheists, they used to celebrate Christmas, and I just grew up celebrating Christmas. And now whenever it's like the holiday season, I just feel this nostalgia, and I love decorating for Christmas. I would celebrate Christmas with my mom's side, and then come Eid, I would celebrate Eid with my dad's side. Welcome to the chaos that is my life. All right, enough on that. Let me show you guys my little decorations that I put up on my bookshelves. So this is an OG of mine. I got it years ago. If you can notice, his hat is cracked, courtesy of my 2 eldest kids. I actually had to glue it back together and repaint the whole thing with red nail polish, but you know. Then I also have this cute little sweater that I got last year. And I have my little angel. Random fact, I am obsessed with anything angel. Here's my coffee, by the way. Because I'm going to be sitting here in a bit and talking to you about all of the books that I read, as well as give you a little like mini book haul. Here I have my little Christmas tree and my nutcracker. I think he is so precious with all the bling. A guy found him last year as well. And then last but not least, we have good old Santa. This thing lights up. Yeah, I'm not going to be lighting it up right now. I'm already holding my mic and the camera. So as you have probably already guessed by the title, today I'm going to be giving you guys a mini book haul, like really mini. There is like 5 books, as well as my reading wrap up. Now, initially I was planning to do a November reading wrap up back when I thought I was going to be filming on the 1st of December, but alas, here we are. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to let you know what books I have read so far. Last night I finished a book and I started another one. More on that in a minute. Let me just get situated, get my coffee, catch my breath. I'm already out of breath. I'm telling you, this virus kicked my ass. And then we'll get into it. All right, boys and girls. I have my coffee. I have my iPad, so I can go through Goodreads, Audible, because I listen to some audiobooks that I really want to tell you guys about, because a certain set of audiobooks that I listened to actually contributed to some physical books, well, Kindle books that I ended up reading because of the audiobooks. More on that in a minute. Also, as I said, I have my mini haul, and I have a whole, almost knocked over that stack. Okay, and I have a big stack of books. November was actually a pretty good reading month. I think I read about 9 books, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I read a whole variety of like romance and fantasy and some classics. One of them, I don't know if you would consider a classic, but it really messed with my head, like in a good way. I am really, really happy with what I was able to read in November as well as December so far. Oh, just to clarify, today is December the 10th when I'm filming this. So I'm going to be telling you everything I read from November 1st. Actually, no, scratch that. From the end of October, because last time we talked was like October 28th or 29th. Anyways, from that time until December 9th is going to be the books I'm going to be talking about. First things first, I need some coffee. Also, how freaking adorable is this mug? Like, I can't stand it. It even comes with a little lid that looks like a Santa hat. Oh my god, second cup of coffee hits differently. And argue with the wall. I know it's decaf. To me, it's about the experience, the aroma, the taste, the warmth. I thought it would be best if we do the haul first because I actually read all the books that I bought recently and I am currently reading the final one. So let's do that first and then we'll backtrack and I'll tell you what books I have read. So first up, these 3 books are actually from Dubai. My husband was on a work trip and I was like, you know what? I heard Dubai has really great bookstores. Let me take advantage of that. So here we have Every Spiral of Fate by Tahira Mafi. This is the 4th book. I don't know what the series is called. Oh, it's called the Woven Kingdom series. Okay, because the first book is called This Woven Kingdom. I have read the series twice. I am obsessed with it. It is so poetic, so lyrical. It is YA fantasy, but it is like nothing else I have ever read before. And Tahira knows how to write tension in the small moments. She knows how to make all that build up between characters, and she knows how to write a love triangle. So this was a very highly anticipated book by me. I heard that the final book is going to come out in 2026, which is book number 5. It's kind of like a bittersweet feeling because I don't want the series to end, but at the same time, I am looking forward to having some closure for these characters because let me tell you, they have been through it. I can't tell you much about this book because it will spoil everything else that came before it. Just know it was a 5-star, fully tabbed, fantastic. Oh, and check these out. I added those little gold corners to it because I did the same to the previous book, so this way it matches when it's on my shelf. This series has one of the most beautiful artwork I've ever seen. Something about the color schemes of her books just speaks to my soul. I just realized I was giving my rating and my review when this should just be a book haul. Okay, I'm not going to do that for the rest of the books that I'm going to show you. I will give you my rating and review after. Listen, I'm hanging on by a thread. I'm not going to lie. Okay, it's been a rough couple of weeks, so bear with me. We watch and we don't judge, right? Okay. Next, we have Heartless Hunter, known in some countries as the Crimson Moth, and Rebel Witch. This is also YA fantasy. It's witch versus witch hunter, enemies to lovers. You know the gist. Yeah, I will keep my opinions to myself about these until we get to the wrap up and review portion of the video. And then finally, I picked up these 2 puppies from the book fair. Once a year, towards the end of November, we have a book fair here. And to be honest, it's anybody's guess what kind of books you're going to find. Luckily, this year, they had a wider selection than they usually would. And I was very surprised, but very pleased to find these books. Now, Priest, I read back in, I want to say 2023 or even 2022. Loved it, devoured it, like obsessed. I just bought it as a book trophy. But Sinner, I have yet to read. More on that later. Also, obviously, these covers are gorgeous. They are the discreet covers for obvious reasons, but yeah. If you have never heard about this author or this series, it's basically 3 books. Very taboo kind of romance. I don't know if you want it. It's not really considered dark, but it is taboo. As you can tell from the title, Priest. Our main guy is a priest, and the love interest is somebody who comes to his confessional, and it's their romance. I'm not going to go too much into detail because, well, if you know, you know. Highly recommend. By the way, I wanted to point something out. It's completely not book related. If you notice that my eyes look a little different, it's because I don't have anything on, because yesterday I gave myself a lash lift. This is something I've been doing for about 2-3 years maybe, and I absolutely love it. I do it every 4 to 6 weeks depending, and this is the kit that I use in case any of you out there are interested. I get it from Amazon. You can find any tutorial on YouTube on how to use it, but it's very simple. It lasts me up to 6 weeks. Fabulous. But the thing is, once I do it, I have to wait 24 hours before putting anything on my eyelashes. You can't even get them wet. So in case I look a little different, that is why. All right, moving on. Got my little Goodreads open here on my iPad. And the first book I read in November, I started it on the 28th of October, but the first book that I finished in November is none other than Pride and Prejudice. I wasn't a big fan of Jane Austen in the past, but once I got into my whole classics obsession, I decided to give her another try. I did an immersive read for this one, which is basically listening to the audiobook while reading along so I don't get distracted. And it really helps me, especially when I'm reading classics, because they tend to be a little more dense and a little slower for me to like process and read. And listening to the audiobook just helps move things along. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the romance. I mean, obviously, who does not like Mr. Darcy and what was her name? Lizzie, right? No, wait. Was her name Lizzie? Elizabeth, whatever. Anyways, I'm getting confused between this and what was it called? And Releasing 10, because her name is Lizzie too. Basically, this was a fun time. I just wish there was a little more conflict before the resolution. It's just my own personal opinion. But other than that, wonderful, lovely. I enjoyed the little moments between them, the tension, the back and forth, the groveling, chef's kiss. I also ended up watching the movie afterwards because it called for it. Even though I've watched the movie before, but like watching it after having finished Pride and Prejudice, it just hit differently. I started this series. I'm not going to take them out of their little box because it's just a pain in the butt to put them all back in. This is the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. This is the first ever book, or like the first series I read by this author, and to be honest, I was blown away. I did not expect to love these books as much as I did. It is a YA fantasy, but the way it's written, you feel as if it really did take place in the Victorian era. I know a lot of modern authors write historical fiction or write fantasy that takes place in supposedly like, you know, the Victorian era or the Regency era, but you can always feel somewhere in the tone that it's been written nowadays. But this series, it just sounded so authentic. So it really helped me picture myself there with the characters in that time period. And the fantasy was very, like the fantasy aspect was very easy to understand and follow. There is found family. There are a few plot twists as well. There is a love triangle that was done so well. I have never in my life read a love triangle done this well. Everybody's honor and morality remained intact. Nobody had to be some kind of asshole. Nobody was mean or hurtful. She just did it beautifully. Did the series break my heart? Yes, it did. Did the ending shatter me and leave me in a bookish hangover? 100%. Would I recommend the series? 1,000%. If you enjoy YA fantasy that is not silly or trivial, that is very serious with high stakes, with mature characters. Magic plays a big role in the series, but it's not very fantastical as in like confusing. You know what I mean? They are still basically in the human world, if that makes sense. Let me give you my rating for each of the books. The first book was 4 stars, but the second and the third book were both 5 stars. So this is a series I would recommend with my whole heart. Now, after finishing The Infernal Devices, I decided to pick up this book. This book is really tiny. I think it's like under 100 and under 200 pages. It's like 180 pages or so. Don't let the cuteness fool you. This book will put you in an existential crisis. You will be doubting yourself, life. You're gonna be like just sitting there looking at a wall. It was so deep. It was very insightful. I can't even find the words to describe what this book did to me, to be honest. But if you are someone who craves intellect, who enjoys delving into the deeper meaning of life, picture the Wizard of Oz, okay? I feel like people are basically divided into 2 groups. There are the people who just, want to go along the yellow brick road, don't want to know what's behind the curtain, and they are okay with that. And then there's another group of people who would prefer looking behind the curtain and seeing the wizard and kind of like facing the truth. I don't know if that makes sense, okay? Let's remember, I'm coming off of a 2-week illness. In my head, it makes perfect sense, okay? If you prefer not knowing, if you prefer going on your merry way, then just ignore everything I said, I guess. Anyways, and obviously 5 stars. I mean, do I even need to tell you? I don't think so. Next, I decided to read something a little less intimidating. Every Spiral of Fate. As I accidentally told you, this was phenomenal, 5 stars. Something I love about her books, especially like book 3 and 4, they don't really end on a major cliffhanger. I mean, yes, they keep you wanting more. They keep you like on your toes, waiting for the next release, but it doesn't have one of those like frustrating cliffhangers.
We're like, oh my God, what am I going to do now for the next couple of years until the new book comes out?
No, like it's satisfying, but you know that there is more to come, if that makes sense. And I picked up Heartless Hunter and Rebel Witch. Both of them were 4 stars. This was a very fun series, to be honest. Like I said, enemies to lovers. She's the witch. He's the witch hunter. We have that whole like moral dilemma. He has his truth, she has hers, and then they kind of have to find their middle where they can kind of meet. It is a slow burn. To be honest, it was very predictable. Like there weren't any plot twists that actually got me. But if you go into it knowing what to expect, knowing that this is not some kind of like high fantasy with some battle and lots of action and plot twists are going to blow your mind, you might really enjoy it. Like it was a fun time. The writing style I found very nice and beautiful. It's just like one of those YA fantasies like Stephanie Garber or Tahira Mafi, just that kind of style of writing that feels a little lyrical, a little magical at times, So yes, it was very fun, very predictable, but a good time nonetheless. My feet are getting numb. I think I need to shift my position. Oh my God. I need to get myself like not a chair per se, because I have a chair. I need to figure out some kind of seating solution that is not me sitting on my feet until they go numb. Next, I picked up The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This book, again, I mean, I don't know if you can see here. Yeah, I tabbed it like crazy. Something about this author's writing style, especially her like gothic dark academia books, it just like mind-blowing. Let me see if I can find you like a random quote, because while I was reading this book, you guys, I was making so many mental notes of the things I wanted to tell you about this book. Obviously, I did not write any of it down. Therefore, I remember nothing of what I wanted to tell you. Okay, this is taking longer than I expected. All right, here's just like a random quote that I highlighted. Better to live in fear than in grinding discontent. Better to dare this new path than continue her slow, grim march down the road that had been chosen for her. At least the scenery would be different. And then another random one. One of the characters says, "You sound like anger, but it's fear I smell." And then just one more. "And while it was true that she'd simply gone from one loveless home to another, that didn't mean she didn't feel the absence of love. Donna Valentina had no acceptable name for the longing she felt and no idea how to soothe it, existing in a state of relentless dissatisfaction." When you read the synopsis of this book, you think it's just going to be sort of like a historical fiction fantasy type of read, which it is, don't get me wrong, but it is so much more than that. So much more. It had politics, it had religion, it had morality, it had sacrifice, it had romance, it had kind of like coming of age, sort of like finding your identity, finding your purpose in life, things people are willing to sacrifice. It had just like so much depth, so many topics wrapped up in this, what you assume would be just, you know, a historical fiction romance. Not romance, fantasy, because it does have like elements of fantasy, but it's not really heavy on the fantasy. It's also got like a very gothic atmosphere. I don't know, everything about this book I devoured. But you have to be willing to look past the text and like read the subtext to really get the message across. Because personally, I feel like the author put so much into the story that is not just on the surface level, you know? Anyways, 5 stars. Could not stop thinking about it for days. Highly recommend. After that, I read a classic, Madame Bovary, or Madame Bovary, by Gustave Flaubert. Again, okay, let me explain myself. The Familiar, Madame Bovary, and A Room with a View are 3 books I read. Okay. I just felt wrong talking to you guys from down here. Okay, so these 3 books I read after each other, and all 3 had a similar concept, which is the authors of these 3 books were trying to convey a different message beneath what seems to be a very regular story, sometimes even mediocre, like this one. But once you see the truth, you can't unsee it, basically. Madame Bovary, the author is telling the story of this very like idle, very superficial housewife who turns into an adulteress. You meet the character of Madame Bovary and you think this is such an entitled little, basically. She has a really kind husband who she willingly decided to marry. She had a child, etc. She was really like lacking for nothing. But once I dove deeper into the story and I read the chapters of some of the side characters and read their discussions, which were mainly about religion and politics, that's when it clicked. This book is not about an adulteress. This book is not about a woman in her like midlife crisis trying to have some fun. This was just a ruse to misdirect the reader's attention from the real message of the book. Because let's not forget, this was written in a time where politics and religion were one and the same, and they were topics that were not really allowed to be spoken up about. So the author accomplished that through dialogue that was had between side characters, and he kept the main focus on Madame Bovary and her shocking adultering life. I don't appreciate the tactic, if I'm completely honest, as someone who is pro-women and women's rights and a feminist. I think it was just a very cheap shot to use a woman's story, an adulteress nonetheless, who the author knows was going to cause shock and discomfort, and like he was definitely going to ruffle some feathers, but it wouldn't have gotten him into trouble as much as if he would have said, I have some opinions on religion, or I have some opinions on politics. So he kind of used her story, meaning using womankind as a scapegoat. Long story short, 3 stars. I have an opinion or two about this book. A Room with a View. Now, when I first started this, it's also a very short story. It's like 130 pages, really short. This was a profound book. The message is basically a replica of Madame Bovary's message, but the execution and the delivery of it was completely different. It was leagues different. This author, A.M. Forster, actually was able to achieve bringing across the same message about like politics and religion, not by using a woman and defamation. The female character in this book is actually extremely resilient, very strong, very likable, very lovable. It's also a little bit of like coming of age. And I feel it's basically a story about like pointing out all the things that were changing during this time. Now, this one was written in the early 1900s. I think it's like the Georgian era, it's called. I forgot. Anyhow, so you can tell it was written in a different era than Madame Bovary, but it was done tactfully nonetheless. He did not use women as a scapegoat, and he was able to bring across his views and his opinions about politics, religion, change, social classes, even discrimination, racism, all of the things that were going on in England at the time. But he did it in such a beautiful and respectful way that I couldn't help but compare between his method and that of what's his name again? Gustave Flaubert. That's my 2 cents on that. I don't know if this bored you guys to death, to tears. I apologize, but I love me a good classic and a good discussion. This one I gave 5 stars. Next, I read Releasing 10 by Chloe Walsh. Okay. I'm just trying to see how I'm gonna like explain my feelings on this book. Okay, first off, this was a 5 stars. All right. Do I sympathize with Lizzie's character? 1000%, without a doubt. I sympathize with everything she has gone through. If you know what this book is about, then you understand why I would sympathize. Okay. That being said, does it justify her actions? Or like more specifically, does it justify the wrong that she has done to certain individuals? In my opinion, it doesn't. Mental health and certain topics that I can't really mention on this platform are extremely valid, should be talked about. Opposed to the opinion of many readers out there, I do stand by Chloe Walsh and her decision to talk in such graphic detail about the topics that are discussed in this book. Because yes, it is ugly, it is uncomfortable, but people need to stop telling victims that they are uncomfortable by the victim's story. If you as a reader or as a spectator are not able to handle or digest these topics because you think they're too graphic or too ugly, then how do you think the victim themselves felt? That was their actual reality. You don't have to read it if it makes you uncomfortable, that's fine. But you shouldn't go around and tell people not to write their truth, not to heal, not to share their story. Because I'm sure there's a lot of victims out there who can relate to Lizzie, who have been told over and over again to remain silent because those topics aren't pleasant to talk about, or somebody else might get uncomfortable. Yeah, but guess what? The victim was definitely uncomfortable when they had to actually live it. You don't have to read it, but you can't tell others not to talk about it. That being said, I still think we are all responsible for our actions. Yes, mental health plays a big role sometimes in the way a person behaves. And I know that hurt people hurt people. 2 things can be true at once. You can be a victim and I can sympathize with you, but you can also be a villain. And I can be like, yeah, no, that is not acceptable behavior. You know what I'm saying? So to me, Lizzie, 100% a victim, 100% needed saving, help, all the love in the world. But also, she was a villain herself. And I understand where she's coming from, but the abuse and the mental problems do not excuse certain behaviors. That's my opinion. But 5 stars. None of this is true by Lisa Jewell. Now, Lisa Jewell is one of my favorite authors. She writes mystery thrillers, not like pure adrenaline pumping thrillers. And I love that about her. But unfortunately, this book was a miss for me. I gave it 3 stars. There wasn't really a plot twist, at least not for me. I don't know. The story dragged. I found myself feeling bored throughout several parts of the book. And then when the supposed plot twist came, like, it was just very obvious. Like, I didn't know that she meant it as a plot twist. That's how obvious it was. But I'm sure there are people out there who would enjoy this book. So I never go around and be like, don't read this book because it didn't click for me. Always do your own research. I am just giving my own opinions about my own experience reading this particular book. But yeah. Before I tell you the last 2 books that I read so far, I'm going to go over my Audible books, the audiobooks that I listened to. Now, I know this is a controversial topic. I am not here to tell you that listening to books doesn't count. That's not what I'm saying. I understand that audiobooks are books, okay? Listening to books, you are basically consuming the story. That's not what I'm here to say. But for me personally, I don't mark it as a read book on my Goodreads unless I actually physically read it. Like, if it's an immersive read, I will count it because I'm actually reading along with the audiobook. But, or if I'm reading on my Kindle, on a paperback, whatever, those I actually count on Goodreads. Just for me, because personally, it takes me a whole different set of skills to physically read a book. It takes so much more brain power for me, attention, time, like, it just takes so much more. So when I listen to a book, I don't feel like I actually read it because it's just like in the background. So I don't count it as a read book on my Goodreads. So that's why I'm just going to tell you what I listened to and what I rated them. If you remember from last month's video, I told you about this cowboy romance. I DNF'd it. It was just too cringy. I could not take another minute, so I never finished listening to it. But then I started listening to J.T. Geisinger. She's the same lady who wrote Pen Pal. If you know Pen Pal, it's one of my favorite books, 5 stars. And I found that a lot of her books are available for free on Audible with a subscription, obviously. If you also download them on Kindle Unlimited. I have both. I have Kindle Unlimited and I have an Audible subscription. So what I go ahead and I do is I download them on my Kindle Unlimited. I don't read them physically. I just listen to them when I'm doing like chores or like running errands. And this way I get them for free on my Audible. The first one I listened to, I think it's called Burn For You. And the second one was called Ache For You. Now, Burn For You, it was like was it 5 stars or 4 stars? Ache For You was like a 3 stars. Okay, so basically she wrote this series that is like a fairy tale reimagining or retelling. It's not fantasy. It's like romance, but she would write the stories based off of like famous fairy tales, which I thought was very fun. I would highly recommend you guys give those a listen or even a read. After that, I was like, you know what? Those are fun. They're not like 5-star unforgettable stories, but they're good enough, entertaining enough to be listening to them while I'm doing my chores, right? So I decided to download a book called Dangerous Beauty by her as well. And it turned out that this was actually a trilogy following the same couple. Now buckle up. This is where I got really invested. It was such a great trilogy. All books got 4 stars. It was really, really nice. Even like book 1, I almost gave it 5 stars, but decided to give it 4 instead. But it's so enjoyable. It follows our main character, Evelina. She ran away from an abusive relationship and she meets this guy called Naz, but then she finds out that he's actually sent to survey her. Like, he's supposed to keep an eye on her. Okay. And I'm not going to say any more than that because obviously anything else would be spoiler, but it was very, very fun. Like, such a good series. Now, in book 2, I think we met a side character. Don't worry, I'm building up. I'm working on something. Just stay with me. Book 2 or 3, we met a character called Killian. I can't tell you who he is or what he does because it'll spoil the whole series and the books that come after. I got obsessed. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I need to read this character's book. So I did a little research, did a little not googling. I did a little chat GBTing, right? I was like, listen, does this character show up in more books? And fortunately, he did. And that brings me to our final two books that I read, called Beautifully Cruel and Cruel Paradise. Now, I read these on my Kindle, physically read them, because one book is about one character, again, can't say who, and the second book is about Killian, the character I got obsessed with. Now, unfortunately, Killian's book, the fifth book, was a letdown. That one ended up being 3 stars. The one before it, Beautifully Cruel, was 4 stars. It was still enjoyable, but when we got to Killian's book, I think the author just ran out of writing juice or something because it felt very rushed. Some parts were cringy. Even Killian's character lacked some of the depth that I found within him in the previous books, which initially got me so obsessed with his character, but it was fun nonetheless. So I would highly recommend you guys give the series a try, because the first 3 books are a trilogy following the same couple. Then the next 2 books are like spin-offs following side characters, but still in the same universe. And you do get a few cameos and stuff from the other characters. All in all, very fun. Nothing too serious. Don't go in there expecting some kind of life-changing romance story. It's fun, you know? I actually read Beautifully Cruel in one day, in under one day. I started it in the morning, finished it in the evening, and then started Cruel Paradise. And then I finished Cruel Paradise the next day, and I started Sinner, which was last night. So currently I am reading Sinner. I think I'm 13% in. Still early days. I kind of know what it's about, but I'm excited to see where it's gonna go. If it's gonna be anything like Priest, or if it's gonna be completely different, no idea. Because in Priest, obviously he's the priest and she's the non-religious, non-church person, whereas Sinner, he's the one who's on the outside of the whole, faith world, and she is the one who is in it. So that will be an interesting spin. As far as TBR, to be honest, I don't have any concrete plan for a TBR. I do know I want to continue reading some of my classics that I have here, and maybe download some, I don't know, romance on my Kindle. I don't really have a set plan, except that I still haven't finished the last 2 books in the Addicted Calloway series, which is really starting to piss me off, because I bought these books in the summer of 2024. So I really don't want to drag them with me into 2026, but it's just, I really have to be in the right mood for this series. So I don't know, to be honest, what's going to happen on that front. As always, don't forget to don't forget to comment, subscribe, follow me on my socials. Let me know what kind of videos you guys would be interested in, because if you don't, I'm just going to keep doing the same shit all over again. I'm going to be doing wrap-ups and book hauls. I mean, what else do I have? So I would appreciate some input from you guys, and I will see you when I see you. Bye!